Dragon Ball is one of the most influential anime and manga series of all time. The creators of One Piece, Bleach, and Fairy Tail have cited Akira Toriyama and Dragon Ball as their biggest inspiration. This is also true of Naruto, which can be seen by all the Dragon Ball references that have appeared throughout the series. Naruto is the third best-selling manga of all time, with Dragon Ball in second place. Both were published in Weekly Shonen Jump magazine and crossed over into several video games. However, Naruto had the benefit of learning from the mistakes of Dragon Ball, which allowed him to become even better. Dragon Ball had several problems throughout its run, which Naruto improved and turned into positive points. We're here today to argue why Naruto is better than Dragon Ball Z. From the quality of combat to the comparison between the main characters, here are 14 reasons why Naruto is better than Dragon Ball Z. 14. Fights are smarter. One of the aspects of Naruto that helped the series become popular, at least initially, was the tactical nature of its fights. The series did not rely on power levels. Instead, when it comes to a fight, intelligence can trump brute force. A character with weaker abilities than his opponent can still be victorious with smart planning and quick thinking. This is why Shikamaru did so well in character popularity polls, despite the fact that he had a boring technique in battle. He used his wits to win battles, and fans loved watching him overcome his foes. Fight scenes in Dragon Ball Z were often visually exciting to watch, but the conclusion often came down to a level of strength that was determined long before the battle began. Dragon Ball Z's battles boiled down to a specific formula of pointless punches and kicks, transformation sequences, and massive beam attacks. Many of Dragon Ball Z's fights were often one-sided, which also made things less interesting. That's why the few balanced battles like Piccolo vs. Android 17 are still so well remembered. 13. Naruto made an effort to attract female fans. One of the main advantages manga have over Western comics is that they know how to appeal to women. Marvel and DC still haven't been able to use the publicity power of their films to bring relevance to their comic book divisions. The manga has managed to amass a huge female audience, the size of which is close to that of the male contingent of fans. Dragon Ball certainly has its share of female fans, but it came from a time when Weekly Shonen Jump was focused on attracting male readers. That changed when Naruto came along, as many of Weekly Shonen Jump's great series struggled to include elements that would appeal to women. It looks like that plan worked. In Naruto's case, they included a lot more romance and relationship teases than you would see in an average battle manga. That's why Naruto is the second biggest series on fanfiction. NET after Harry Potter, as it inspires a whole new level of creative input from its fans. 12. Naruto never abandoned any of his characters. It could be argued that Akira Toriyama is a notoriously forgetful person, as this has been true throughout his career, as many Dragon Ball characters and concepts ceased to be relevant after the first arc in which they appeared. One of the most notable characters to disappear was Launch, who never appeared in the Dragon Ball manga after the Saiyans arrived. That's because Toriyama literally forgot she existed. The anime staff managed to give her a few more appearances, so she wasn't totally forgotten about in the anime. Not only did Naruto retain his entire core cast until the end, but he managed to keep them relevant in combat. They all had moments to shine during the World War arc. Naruto and Sasuke eventually managed to outrun the other characters, but that didn't render the others useless. In the case of Dragon Ball Z, everyone who wasn't Saiyans was left in the dust and ceased to be relevant as anything other than a brief distraction. 11. Hollywood hasn't ruined Naruto yet. Dragon Ball is another anime and manga franchise that has a bad adaptation for Hollywood. Dragon Ball Evolution turned Goku into a high school student who had to fight the evil Piccolo in a contemporary setting. The film was panned by virtually everyone upon release. Dragon Ball Evolution has almost nothing to do with the series it was adapting and is just a horrible movie. Akira Toriyama is a private person who hasn't interacted much with fans since Dragon Ball ended. It looks like even he couldn't hold his tongue, as he's lashed out at Dragon Ball Evolution in multiple interviews. Naruto has yet to receive a live-action movie, but that will soon change. Lionsgate is making a Naruto movie, with Masashi Kishimoto on board as producer. We can only hope that the Ghost in the Shell failure has derailed those plans. 10. Naruto never had a child as a main character. Goku is 13 years old at the start of Dragon Ball. The series followed him into his adult years, up to the point where he became a grandfather. One of the most disturbing aspects of Dragon Ball Z was the fact that Gohan was thrust into the role of the protagonist at the age of 4. Piccolo took a baby into the mountains to train him for combat. Gohan was then brought in to fight the Saiyans when he was still too young to know his letters and numbers. What makes this worse is the fact that Gohan is clearly traumatized by these experiences and spends most of these fights in tears. The main cast of Naruto started around the same age as Goku was at the beginning of Dragon Ball. All of them have spent years in training, and those who are not suited for the life of a ninja are weeded out and given regular jobs. Gohan was little more than a baby when he was forced to fight Vegeta and Nappa. 9. Naruto never needed to rely on time manipulation. The Android Saga introduced time travel to Dragon Ball Z. This came into forms through Trunks' time machine and the hyperbolic time chamber. Trunks was able to travel back in time to warn the Z fighters of the android's arrival and Goku's death from heart disease. As the story continued, Goku revealed the existence of the hyperbolic time chamber at Kami's lookout. This is a room where a year passes outside for every day spent inside. The Z fighters were able to use this room to become stronger. Introducing time travel to a series is always a tricky proposition. It usually brings up the question of why don't they use time travel to solve all their problems. This was something the Harry Potter franchise learned the hard way. Naruto never needed to resort to time travel, so he managed to avoid these problems. 8. No obnoxious screeching when calling. The importance of Dragon Ball Z cannot be underestimated when it comes to series that helped popularize anime and manga in the West. It is alongside Pokémon and Sailor Moon to help bring what was once a niche genre into the mainstream. The flip side of this is that the negative aspects of Dragon Ball Z became associated with the anime and manga as a whole. Dragon Ball Z featured a lot of obnoxious screaming and snarling, which was done as the characters prepared for battle. This culminated in Goku's voice actor, Sean Schemmel, passing out during a recording of Dragon Ball GT. This was due to the amount of noise that was required during Goku's Super Saiyan 4 transformation. The screaming character when powering up has become a stereotype associated with anime as whole. Naruto never had anything so unpleasant within its history that it reflected so poorly on the industry. 7. Naruto kept a consistent tone and genre. Dragon Ball was an odd series as it seemed to totally change the tone and genre from each story arc to the next. The story started out as a fantasy adventure that parodied certain aspects of Journey to the West, but by the end of Dragon Ball, you had the alien Super Saiyans fighting a genie that had existed for millennia. The reason for these changes was due to the fact that Akira Toriyama made everything up as he went along with no long-term plans for where the story would go. What makes this so shocking is how easily the series bounced between light adventures and brutal murder fests. This is especially true in Dragon Ball Z, where nearly every major character from the original series is killed fighting Saiyans in the space of a few issues. Naruto has always managed to unite lighthearted moments and serious stories throughout its execution. This meant that those who started the series from the beginning would not be shocked by the content in later issues, as it was smoothly woven into the story from the beginning. 6. The cast of Naruto really made a difference and received recognition for their actions. Naruto ended with the world at peace. The ninja villages declared a ceasefire that appeared to have held for over a decade. Technology advanced as skyscrapers and personal computers were brought to Konoha. The former Kage have also retired and left the world in the capable hands of the younger generation. The world of Dragon Ball Z never seemed to be altered by the events of the story. Goku and his friends mostly dealt with doomsday threats and were never proactive in stopping them. They were willing to allow Dr. Gero finish building his androids as they wanted a good fight. Furthermore, the Z fighters never received any recognition for their actions, which allowed Hercule to appear and claim full credit for stopping Cell. Goku and his friends might not exist as far as the larger world is concerned. 5. Battles looked more deadly. It's hard to deny that Naruto was a much bloodier series than Dragon Ball. Characters were constantly being slashed by blades and dodging poison attacks. There were several characters who specialized in medical ninjutsu, which they used along or in conjunction with their combat skills. Only the most skilled ninja could use their chakra to heal others' wounds, which kept many of them alive as prisoners of war. Dragon Ball Z made it much more difficult to worry about the wounds inflicted during battle. That's because the characters never seemed to disturbed by serious injuries. Tenshinhan got his arm punched by Nappa, but he was fine to keep fighting. It also had characters with powerful healing abilities like Den and the Senzu Beans, which can heal someone on the brink of death in seconds. The Dragon Ball's resurrection abilities made it difficult to worry about death and its lasting implications. 4. Women were more important. Dragon Ball featured several important women in its cast. The series would never have gone anywhere without Bulma and her inventions. However, there were almost no female fighters in all of Dragon Ball, with the exception of the filler arcs and movies, which were not created by Akira Toriyama. Dragon Ball Super recently introduced its first canonical female Super Saiyan, which took over 25 years to debut. Naruto featured many important female characters, who appeared in positions of power and were equal to men in combat. Tsunade, Mei Terumi and Kurotsuchi were some of the most important political figures in the ninja world, and each was a deadly warrior in their own right. Dragon Ball Super has recently allowed women to become more important in terms of physical power in the franchise, although it has taken a long time to get to that point. Fortunately, Naruto has always allowed female characters to participate in battles and be important from the beginning. 3. Naruto had a purpose and an ending that made sense. One of the oldest urban legends about Dragon Ball is that Toriyama wanted to end the series at an earlier point in the story but was forced to continue by his publishers. That's not true. Although the series may have benefited from ending sooner than it did, Dragon Ball ended with Goku meeting Yub for the first time and taking him to train. The series tried to make a comparison between Yub and the younger version of Goku, which never quite made sense. This was probably one of the reasons why Dragon Ball had several different sequels over the years. Naruto's goal was to become Hokage. He achieved that goal in the end, which was a natural ending point for the story. We then saw his son getting up to the same shenanigans he did in the first issue, which ended the series in a satisfying way. 2. Naruto never had underage nudity. Most people will likely disagree with the things said in this article. Naruto certainly has its detractors, and the series has its flaws, which only got worse over time. For all of Naruto's flaws, there is one terrible aspect of Dragon Ball that he managed to avoid. You might hate Uzumaki Naruto, but at least you've never seen his penis. Akira Toriyama was keen to include full-frontal nudity for Goku and Bulma in the Dragon Ball manga, at a point where they were both 13 and 16 years old, respectively. You could argue that Dragon Ball was a product of its time and that there are different sensibilities at play. A boy's nudity in Japanese culture is occasionally considered a sign that someone has an innocent nature. It's harder to defend the scene where Yamcha is spying on a naked Bulma as she gets out of the shower. These scenes actually led to the Dragon Ball manga being pulled from Toys R Us stores until they were sufficiently censored. 1. The main character is relatable. Naruto is defined by his relationships with other people. As an orphan, he cherished the bonds he made with others in his village. He also had to endure feelings of abandonment and isolation from others. These are relatable parts of life that all humans go through at some point or another. Kishimoto was able to weave human drama alongside fantasy ninja action, which was one of the factors that helped the Naruto franchise become popular. Goku is a great fighter, but he is a terrible father, husband, and friend. The only thing Goku cared about was fighting, which meant he had no problem abandoning his family. Goku's entire plan to defeat Cell involved putting his son in mortal danger, prompting Piccolo to call him a horrible father. It's possible to love Goku as a hero, but it's hard to associate with him on a personal level. Naruto suffers the same trials and tribulations that many children and teens go through, which appeals to fans as they want to find out if things worked out for him in the end.